can you claim anything about the skin microbiome in normal skin? And by normal skin, I'm talking about the skin that most people, including babies, go around with every day without complaint. We know the skin is always in flux. We know there are things going on at different parts of your body, but by and large, you're quite happy with your skin. And by and large, the baby or the toddler that's running around is quite happy with their skin. So that's the normal. We're not talking about medical conditions. And you will see across the whole of the internet all sorts of claims about world leaders in skin microbiome, good bacteria for great skin, probiotic skincare, and so on. And you'll have seen lots and lots of these claims. And interestingly, they are invariably on the net or on pack and not on TV, where claims are reviewed first. Now, this is one that seems to come up a lot, and you'll see this written a lot. There was a time when our skin's ecosystem was in balance, which implies it isn't now. Biodiverse, healthy and wild, but industrial beauty has stripped it and polluted it. Well, that's a business I've been in for 30 odd years. I'm, pretty sad to hear that somebody thinks I've polluted their skin. And we've lost a microbiome perfected by thousands of years of evolution. We lost our best skin and we want it back. That comes up, this whole tenet of what we've lost from days gone by comes up a lot. But I'm told I can get it back in 30 days. So in 30 days, I'll have rebalanced my microbiome and got my best skin ever back. So the question is, where does this best skin actually come from? Well, this product's going to do it by using a combination of a probiotic extract and prebiotic nutrients to boost barrier function. And as we've just heard a little bit from James, his oat extracts also have other effects on the skin. And because they have other effects, it's very difficult to separate out those effects from the effects they're having on the microbiome. So looking back to these wonderful times in the past, the floors are in general laid with white clay and are covered with rushes, occasionally renewed, but so imperfectly that the bottom layer is left undisturbed, sometimes for 20 years, harboring expectoration, vomiting, and the leakage of dogs and men, ale droppings, scraps of fish, and other abominations not fit to be mentioned. This was Erasmus talking on medieval floors where people were actually sleeping. And of course, this is going to affect your microbiome because your microbiome is partly a function of the environment in which you're in. And we've got to remember the medieval times, we're talking about 1,000 years ago. If we go back 2,000 years to around the time of Christ, Hippocrates and Alcmaeon are talking about the four humours, and we're talking black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. So we're in a very different time, and all sorts of things are going on around people that will control their microbiome. And this is the microbiome we are led to believe we need to get back to. So 2,000 years ago, this is the state of play. And so what was life like 2,000 years ago? Well, this would have been your desirable residence 2,000 years ago, as you were in the Iron Age. A nice roundhouse, all sorts of vermin living in it with you, some vermin or parasites living on you. You would have been in a very smoky atmosphere all of the time. You would have had a very different diet to what you have today, which we know affects your gut microbiome. And you will also have had internal parasites. And if we're led to believe that the gut microbiome and microflora helps control the skin, then what was going on in your gut then with various internal parasites would have had a different effect on your skin. Throw in a few bed bugs, throw in a few body lice and head lice, and we have a very different microbiome at the time. So then you have to ask the question, as we come forward in time, what did the Romans do for us? Well, this group of characters, I'm sure a lot of you know, decided on a whole range of things that the Romans did for us, including plumbing, and they brought us the toilet brush. Now, this isn't the toilet brush you stick down the toilet to clean the toilet. This is how you cleaned your bottom at the time. It was basically a sponge on a stick. That sponge was just rinsed in water before your neighbor used it, or if you were part of the military, before a whole bunch of other guys used it as well. So you have to say, well, surely people were washing at the time. Well, they were, but so since the ancient Egyptians, so we're going back perhaps another 1,000, 2,000 years before this, before our Roman colleagues, they had soap, but it was of unknown quality. It was unknown purity, and really importantly, it was of unknown alkalinity. The residual alkalinity of soap has a lot to do with its mildness and irritation potential. So this wonderful microbiome and the best skin ever was growing up, and something we're told we should aspire to was actually growing up in the time of poor quality soap or unknown soaps, poor quality hygiene or variable hygiene, and curious housing. Now, back at the anti-aging conference, I presented this part as a summary slide. It looks more like the London Tube map, but this was my attempt to include all the things you would need to consider if you wanted to do an experiment which said changing the microbiome changes the skin, and would exclude the fact that changing or adding an ingredient could change the skin, which in turn would change the microbiome. It's a question of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So I'd gone through all this exercise, and this very complex approach came out. Now, just to take you back a little bit further, this happens to be the surface of Mars. We keep searching for life on Mars, and we can't find it at the moment. So let's assume this is a sterile surface. When you think about playing around with the microbiome, and I use the word playing advisedly because this is what we're doing. We're playing with the unknown, because when we add in a new biological species or we add in a new biological shift, we don't know what we're doing to that surface. And it could be good, it could be bad. And as far as Mars is concerned, I suspect putting in a biological character like this and changing Mars's microbiome is not going to be a good thing. So when you decide to move around the microbiome on a person, it may not be the best thing for them. So if we go back to this really complex slide, what I want to do is just take a look at this bit down at the bottom and see where that takes us. When we're starting to talk about babies, let's focus down. And interestingly, I don't know what a baby is. Well, I do, but it's not really defined. Is the baby the first 6 weeks? Is it the first year? Is it up to that time when they start walking around and they're no longer called a baby, but a toddler? That's important because we've been told this morning how much their skin is changing and how much their microbiome is changing. So just saying baby doesn't really make sense. So we're dealing with babies from different locations. We're dealing with babies with different diets and different sex and so on. And importantly, over here on the left is what magnitude of change is required in the microbiome to elicit a change in the skin. We really don't know, and we don't know if one will occur in normal skin. But let's look at product interactions. Pardon me. So we're talking about baby skin and where. Well, let's talk about the bottom, because that seems to be the most important part, and just think about the products we might be using. We've got products that are making duration claims. This is a 12-hour product duration claim. So we've got an environment which is changing during the night. The baby goes to bed clean and dry. By the time they wake up in the morning, it's a very moist, more acidic environment. So your microbiome would have changed overnight. Then you wake in the morning, and the first thing you do is take the nappy off and clean the baby. So what does that then do to the microbiome? Well, it's taken away all the microbiome that developed overnight. So we have a new microbiome. And then we put the baby in some form of absorbency, whether you like terry toweling nappies or whether you like disposable nappies. We're going to get a different environment again, and that's going to last for the whole of the day before we go back into the nighttime. And then laid on top of that, throughout the whole of the day or the whole of the night, we've got some care products. But the important thing is they're all happening at the same time. So if you want to intervene at one point in this and run a trial, you've got to consider everything else that is going on in that baby's life and around that baby's bottom, including controlling what they eat during the study. So to make microbiome-based claims on skin health or quality, you will need at least the following: a strong technical model that demonstrates the microbiome could have an effect on skin health and quality, rather than the skin affecting the microbiome. You're going to need a strong technical model for everyday skin and the controlling effect of the microbiome. And everyday skin is the sort of skin we all have, and you're all sat listening to this, and this is your everyday skin. You're going to need single variable data to demonstrate the microbiome changes the skin more than the product or ingredient. And that's the experiment I cannot design. I've tried, and I've tried very hard, spoken to a lot of people, we still can't design it. You will need regression testing to show skin condition is maintained due to the new microbiome and not what the ingredient was doing to the skin on its own. And you're going to need proof that removing the product doesn't change the skin, because if it changes the skin, it's going to change the microbiome and you're back to where you started. So only then can you contemplate claims that your product changes the microbiome and, as a result of that change, improves skin health and quality. So, amongst the consultants I work with, to date, we've seen no sound data proving cosmetic ingredients or products deliver a general skin health benefit as a result of changing or complementing the skin microbiome. Lots of data to say they change the skin, but nothing to say they change the microbiome, which then changes the skin. And the question is that because it doesn't work or it can't be proved? And I think we're stuck between the two. All we know so far is the microbiome can be changed, but like the surface of Mars, that might not be such a good thing. And I don't think you can just tinker around with it and hope you're going to get the right result. So can you claim anything about skin microbiome in normal skin? Probably not.